This is one of the saddest and most frustrating stories you will ever hear. A simple act of kindness, a favor so small, ended in an unimaginable tragedy. It all started on June 16th, 2024 in Agbor Delta State, Nigeria. Joe Philip, a 29-year-old man, was at his father's house. Joe was a quiet, hard-working man, married, and it was reported that his wife was pregnant at the time of the incident, and they lived in the same compound with his father, Mr. Philip Eboko, a well-known vigilante in the community. That evening, a female neighbor came to Joe's house with a request. She wanted to charge her phone, a small Nokia touchlight phone, and Joe, being kind, allowed her to plug it in. She left after that, planning to come back for it the next day. Joe, tired from the day's activities, soon went to bed. But while he was sleeping, something terrible happened. Around 4 or 5 a.m., Joe woke up to a shocking discovery. Someone had broken into the house and stolen both his mobile phone and the neighbor's phone. Panicked, he reached for his wife's phone and called his own line, but it was off. He then reached out to his father, who was still out on duty. His father told him to remain calm until he returned in the morning. But before Mr. Philip Eboko could get back that morning, the neighbor had already started making trouble. As soon as the woman realized her phone was missing, she went into a rage. Instead of thinking logically about what might have happened, she immediately blamed Joe. She stormed into the compound, shouting at him, calling him a thief, and demanding that he return her phone. People in the neighborhood tried to calm her down, telling her to be patient, but she refused. She did not care that Joe was the one who had helped her by allowing her to charge the phone in the first place. Joe, embarrassed and frustrated, tried to explain that the house had been broken into and even offered to replace the phone, but she refused. She did not want another phone. She wanted that exact phone. This was not just an ordinary neighbor. She had a powerful connection. Unknown to many, this woman was the girlfriend of the chief security officer of Anioma Security Office, the local vigilante group responsible for protecting the community. The woman quickly informed the chief security officer, which is her boyfriend, and he promised to recover the phone for her. Wanting to please his girlfriend and prove his power, the chief security officer decided to teach Joe a lesson without even investigating the matter properly. Instead of handling the case professionally, he turned it into a personal mission to punish Joe, all to impress his girlfriend. That Sunday, Joe went to church, hoping that by the time he returned, the issue would have died down. But he had no idea what was waiting for him. As soon as Joe came back from church, a group of armed vigilante men were already in front of his house waiting. Without any explanation, they grabbed Joe and his father, bundled them into a vehicle, and drove them straight to Anioma Security Office. Inside the security office, the vigilante men, led by the chief security officer himself, began interrogating them. "Where is the phone?" they kept asking. Joe and his father tried to explain that a thief had entered the house and stolen the phones, but the vigilante officers did not want to listen. The chief security officer was not interested in the truth. He was only interested in satisfying his girlfriend. Then the beating started. The security men beat Joe and his father mercilessly, not caring about their screams or explanation. They punched, kicked, and used sticks to hit them over and over again. Joe's father, being older, managed to survive the assault, but Joe was not so lucky. The beating continued until Joe stopped breathing. At first, the vigilante men thought Joe had only fainted, but when they checked, he was completely unresponsive. Joe was dead. Panic set in among them. Realizing the situation had gone too far, the chief security officer and his men ran away, abandoning Joe's lifeless body and his injured father. News of Joe's death spread like wildfire across Agbor. The community was in shock. How could a man lose his life over a missing phone? But the most painful part of this story, the phone was never stolen. Hours later, it was discovered that the woman's own son had taken the phone. The young boy admitted that he went into Joe's house, saw his mother's phone charging, and took it. He said he did not want to wake Joe up, so he quietly left with it. This meant that Joe was killed for absolutely nothing. A man lost his life, a woman lost her husband, and an unborn child lost father, all because of a simple misunderstanding. When the people of Agbor heard what had happened, they were furious. That same night, a mob of angry youths stormed the Anioma Security Office, burning it down to the ground. They also went after the neighbor who accused Joe destroying her house in anger. Her neighbors also fled, fearing the wrath of the community. Meanwhile, the police got involved, and both the woman and her boyfriend, the chief security officer, were arrested and charged in court. They now face serious legal consequences for their roles in Joe's death. This tragic story is a painful reminder of how dangerous false accusations and abuse of power can be. Joe Philip was just a man trying to help his neighbor, yet he ended up losing his life. His pregnant wife will now raise their child alone. His father will live with the trauma of watching his son die before his eyes. And all because one woman used her influence to punish an innocent man over a phone, a simple Nokia touchlight phone. What if it was an iPhone? Maybe they would have killed the entire Joe's family. No life is worth taking over a phone. Now, justice must be served.